The Mara Yama, after looking into the Exodus Archimedes engine book, and of course the reveal trailer when it comes to the Exodus game, are so far one of the most interesting and mysterious beings in the Centauri cluster. Today, I'm going to be doing a deep dive on what we know about the Mara Yama so far, before hopefully another massive trailer for Exodus during the Game Awards on December the 12th, along with a breakdown of their trailer, and speculation of the Mara Yama in general. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, make sure to stick around and let's get right into it. The Mara Yama are officially celestials in the world of Exodus, meaning that even these things, yes, these things, are an evolution in some way or form from the human race. Just like every other celestial being is when it comes to Exodus. Now, how exactly the Celestials evolve differently from each other, I'm sure will be a world-shattering truth if we ever find that out. But for now, we'll just have to be satisfied with knowing that the Mara Yama do have human ancestors, as crazy as it seems. Now, a lot of information we have currently for the Mara Yama actually comes from the book we mentioned earlier, being the Archimedes engine. Although they are Celestials, they are vastly different than most of the Celestials we know of so far. One thing that sets them apart is that, kind of like the Quarians for Mass Effect, they are migratory, and haven't been heard of settling on any planets, at least from what we've seen so far. They fly through space with their insanely big ships, as you can see the size difference in the trailer that they had for the Mara Yama in the game, and are said not to travel through the gates of heaven, which are essentially the Mass Effect relays that let you travel at light speed in the Exodus universe. When it comes to how the Mara Yama look like and operate, it is said that they evolved in a way called multi-moiety. Excuse me if I mispronounced that, by the way. Which basically just means multi-bodies or multi-thinking. So far, we only know of one other celestial species evolving in the same way, being the Tolak-Te, hinting that the Mara Yama may have many different bodies. As of right now, it's not clear if this means this is a hive mind type of evolution, something similar to, say, Gravemind from Halo 2, where on Delta Halo, he controls every single flood as its omniscient ruler. Or if this is more of a Geth type of relationship from Mass Effect, where they all on their own are capable of their own thoughts, but when together, they can do so much more. As of right now, we just don't have enough information to conclude either way just yet. In terms of what they actually look like, we do see a wall of faces on their ship during the trailer for the game, which in the breakdown, I'll point out something pretty interesting about them, but we don't know if these are the Mara Yama themselves though, or just remainders of their victims. There is a chance that what we see in the trailer is in fact the form of the Mara Yama, and that could be its collective hive mind, in which being tied to the ship is a reason that they've never settled on a planet. But again, that's all just speculation, based on if this is actually the Mara Yama we're seeing or not. We know from the trailer and the book that the Mara Yama take sentient creatures and drain their memories, dreams, and destroy the creature's neurology. They keep the organism alive for as long as possible while doing this, to torment and optimize the extraction of their memories and emotions while doing so. We don't exactly know if they themselves need this to keep themselves going and alive, or if it's just a morbid indulgence, but either way, it seems like a cruel way to go out. Lastly, on a lore standpoint before the trailer breakdown, I actually just googled the words Mara Yama to see if there was a reference to anything, and apparently it's the combination of two figures from Hinduism and Buddhism, where Mara represents the personification of temptation and negativity, a tempter who tries to distract individuals from achieving enlightenment, often seen as demonic, and Yama is the god of death and the underworld, also known as someone who passes judgment on souls. So in a way, their name depicts the combination of desire leading to death, maybe signifying and reaching for their celestial evolution and traveling the stars. Their desire led to this outcome to where they turned into a mass of organisms looking like the Flood from Halo. Now let's get into the trailer breakdown, which upon further inspection, in my opinion, gives us a lot to digest about the Mara Yama. First and foremost, let's start with what Matthew McConaughey has to say during the trailer itself and the voice lines he provided for the actual entry that we hear about the Mara Yama. He starts off by saying the Mara Yama thrive off of the fear, signifying that maybe collecting the dreams, memories, and fearful emotions do help the Mara Yama in some way. He then says that they haunt the darkest corners of the cluster, obviously meaning the Centauri cluster where Exodus takes place, but hinting that they stay away from the more populated regions of the cluster for unknown reasons. He also follows it up by saying they're hunting for isolated targets, which leads me to wonder the simple question of why? They seem formidable enough, and they are Celestials after all, so why wait for sentient beings to be isolated? Is there some kind of blatant weakness that the Mara Yama have that people in groups can actually perform, or do they just want to make sure that they're favored in every encounter that they come across? These lines have me curious to say the least. He then continues by saying they want minds, memories, emotions. The more twisted and tortured, the better. Captured prey will be subjected to psychological torment before being neurologically drained. This leads us back to what we discussed earlier about them, but hints at them prioritizing some sort of maybe chemical from the brain or something that they actually get from twisting and torturing their captured subjects. This to me just screams that in the full game we'll get some sort of dreamlike or worst case scenario scene that'll play out, where we see a terrible version of the past or future in a sort of dreamlike sequence that we have to break out of in one way or another if we ever encounter or get captured by the Mara Yama. He then continues saying, those rare few who the Mara Yama allow to survive and escape often never return to space, for they too well know the terror that lurks out there between the stars. This line in particular is super puzzling to me. The wording, if we take it from what he literally is just saying, means they allow certain people to live for one reason or another, and if we don't take it literal, it just means some people manage to escape their grasp. But if it is the literal translation and we just take his words at face value, what would allow someone to be shown mercy from the Mara Yama? My theory is that maybe it's because they couldn't be tempted when they were going against the psychological torment that the Mara Yama instill. Again, the Mara part of their name does translate to something that tries to tempt you from enlightenment, and Yama translates to the one that passes judgment to souls after life or in the underworld. So maybe the Mara Yama performs some sort of litmus test to see if you're worthy of maybe some knowledge or technology. It's all very mysterious. Let alone if someone escaping doesn't apply to you or your crewmates, then I'm assuming in-game we will be coming across a Mara Yama survivor somewhere throughout its story. What Matthew McConaughey has to say is very interesting in this short trailer, and that's only half of the breakdown. We still have everything going on screen, which actually gives us a lot of clues on what could be happening with the Mara Yama themselves. In the first shot, we get the ship that is sadly going to be getting got in this video, so press F in the comment section to pay your respects. They then show the massive shadow across the first ship we see itself, and then they pan over to the Mara Yama and that first ship being side by side. This shot in particular is obviously just to show us the massive size difference between these two spacecrafts. Now in this shot in particular, pay close attention to this part of the ship here, as you will be seeing a change in the trailer. Also, the ship is seemingly made of organic or biological material, giving it a sort of Flood from Halo or Collectors from Mass Effect feeling and look to the Mara Yama. Now, on this next shot, we get a still from what we've touched on before, being the wall of faces that are on the ship itself. Now, this could very well be the Mara Yama, or could be their victims, and to that I say, why not both? My theory on this front is that I believe that this is the Mara Yama and it's the victims at the same time. Maybe once taking down an organism and draining them of everything, essentially turning them into a husk, they are then assimilated to the Mara Yama hive mind and are part of the Mara Yama themselves. One major reason that I believe this to be true is look at the faces on the wall. Sure, some of them are the normal gluttonous looking monsters that are probably the human evolution once they officially became Celestials, but what about this face right here? This one looks nothing like the rest of the faces around it in my opinion, with the more narrow top of the head, the reptile looking face structure, and its mouth isn't pointed upwards towards the nose like the rest of the faces around it. I believe this face right here is also a different species as well, which we can definitely tell is different than the other faces around from its small mouth that's towards the bottom of the face. Overall, my theory on the Mara Yama is, like I said before, the Mara Yama essentially adds to its species by draining people of their memories and life force, then hunts for more while indulging in probably what they would think is good tasting food, being the fear and memories of a living species. I think the gluttonous looking alien heads in there are probably the more human evolution that is the initial Mara Yama, but as for the other heads, I think those are souls unfortunate enough to have been caught by them. After that shot, we then see this crazy looking shot of the arm structure starting to build and reaching out towards the ship we saw at the very beginning. As the video plays, you can see it reaching out ever so slowly towards the ship that we saw at the start as this structure of arms just keeps growing and moving towards the ship. Also, under the layer of organic and biological arms that seem to be growing, we also see some sort of green layer underneath, which we can't make out exactly what it could be, but it's definitely there. After that, we then get a top-down view of what's happening, and the arms are almost at the ship from the very beginning, but we spotted a bunch of things on this shot as well. Firstly, that spot I told you to keep in mind is where the pull of arms is coming out from. So essentially, it looks like they can grow extremities out of any part of the ship, which is an insane feature. We also get a shot of what we could only assume to be probes that they have in order to maybe shut down ships or scout out their potential prey, as the main ship and arms seem to be very slow moving. We can't exactly tell how fast everything is occurring in the trailer since it has a lot of cuts in it to get to what's happening next, but I'm assuming that all of this isn't happening instantaneous. Along with that, we get to see some smaller ships that apparently the Mara Yama have, which I would assume are used to dock on captured ships and transport their prey back to their capital ship. On the next shot, we see that the arms have finally reached the ship from the beginning of the trailer, and that there is this blue light from the ship's thrusters that finally give out. As you can see, the light fades from the arm structure here, and also on the rings on the bottom of the ship as well. Then finally, one last interesting thing I saw on the smaller boarding ships is that we can see a little bit of their tech peeking out from the organic look that it has overall. On this ship down here, we can see a little bit of what I assume is the tech poking out at the very bottom, and on one of the final shots, we see some sort of pole poking out as well, which, if these ships don't have any actual Mara Yama in them, maybe it's used to control them remotely. That is, if the only Mara Yama that are actually alive or a part of the hive mind are the ones that are actually connected on the outer walls of the ship. Overall though, that's the full trailer breakdown of the wording and the visuals in the trailer. Let me know if I missed something in the comment section down below. When it comes to what their lore could entail and their looks, I think the Mara Yama are a super interesting species overall, and will probably be one of the more scarier moments in the game once we come face to face with this celestial presence. I'm excited to see what more we will learn of the Mara Yama in the meantime through trailers, books, and eventually the game when it comes out. Let me know what you guys think about the Mara Yama, my theories about them, and everything else presented in the video in the comment section down below. And of course, I just wanted to thank you guys so much for making it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed or found it entertaining, make sure to scroll down and make that like button glow so we can reach our like goal of 25 likes for this video. While you're down there, consider subscribing as we'll be covering Exodus as updates come out, deep lore on the game, other AAA games throughout the year, hilarious content, and more. As always, your support through your viewership, liking, and subscribing is always greatly appreciated and helps me out tremendously against the celestial threat that is the YouTube algorithm. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to catch you guys next time. Peace!